and welcome back to the Whatnauts review show number 299. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing good, Kyle. I'm sure we'll talk more about this in our next episode of the Captain's Log, but just got to check in. How'd you feel about Olympic breaking?
I have not finished watching all of it, but I'm enjoying it a lot. There's been some great stuff. It's been a lot of fun indeed. I've gotten through all the women's stuff. I'm watching the men's qualifying right now, and I'm almost done with that. So I've not watched the actual, like, here's the semifinals or what have you. But I know who got all the medals and stuff like that. But
I watched the women's finals, haven't watched the men's finals yet. I don't know. Yeah. I want to watch it. I must see.
It's crazy. Like it makes me nostalgic as someone who used to dance. But it's also just like, man, they're 17 years old and they're doing all of that, and then to go and immediately see the men are just like on another level. They're just on a planet by themselves, just doing absolutely inhuman stuff.
Really astronomical feats. I do love that the Olympics does not label it as men's and women's. They label it as B-boys and B-girls.
Yes,
they seem very authentic to the culture.
They are trying hard, because that is the misnomer. It's not called break dancing. That was a mistake by the news who didn't understand it, and then that's what everyone calls it, and it's like, come on. But there you go, lots of fun. I'm glad you've checked it out too.
Mom and we had a great time. She's really invested in it after I told her it's something you used to do. She's like, I bet Kyle knows all this stuff. Yep. Do you think Kyle can do that? Like, I'm sure he did it once. I don't know if he can do it now.
No, I cannot do that. No, once I started to learn the like fancy stuff, it was just like, oh, this is going to take years to even get this one move down. I can't do that. That's a lot. There's no way. So it was not for me. I switched to choreography and stuff where I didn't have to do all the handstands.
You tell somebody else to do it.
Yeah, you do this step,
those
and
who
then you
can't
do that
teach.
step. Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Let's see. So we had some crazy rainstorms here last night. This is the last little bit of info that
I just want to say
mention.
I have to crawl under my desk and plug in my charger. Please talk to the people about the rain while I do this. Thank you.
Go for it. So we had these big rainstorms that hit last night, thundering really loudly, woke us up multiple times. And when we woke up, it was still raining. We went to go to the grocery store this morning. And by our house, there is a kind of park / field that has multiple little baseball diamonds for like little league stuff like that. A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so, when we had some big tornado warnings, the like dugout sections got like ripped apart and stuff like that. It was kind of like, whoa, that wind was strong. But we drove by the field this morning, and it was legitimately a lake. It was filled up. You could see the fences of where the baseball diamonds were. They were at the tops of the fences, which is maybe up to like my stomach, just underneath my chest. It was filled with that much water.
Wow.
It's right by a river, so the whole thing flooded, and just incredible. It was like, whoa, never seen anything like that. That's wild. Yeah, just no more baseball for quite a while.
Oh, sorry, kids.
Yeah.
Got to pick up another sport. Time to learn breaking.
Yeah, something. Swimming. Indeed. Well, that is all fine and dandy. But if you did not know, here at the Whatnauts review show, each and every episode, we have a different story to talk about. It could be a movie, an anime, a manga, a comic book, a TV show, an audio drama. We read it, we watch it, we come back here and talk about it. This week, we are talking about the 1967 television show, The Prisoner. I'm excited to get into this one. You had mentioned this one to me quite a while ago. I had heard about it on a podcast from someone else. You guys like planted the seed in my mind, but it didn't stick. Like I wasn't thinking about the show until that same podcaster mentioned it like 3 or 4 times within like a 2-week span on different podcasts. Not even like the same podcast, just multiple episodes, like completely different podcasts, just came up casually in conversation. He wasn't like actively being like, everyone needs to go watch this show. And for some reason that made it stick. And I was like, oh, we need to talk about this show. This sounds awesome. And then I was like, Melissa, we need to talk about this show. And you were like, Kyle, I was the one that told you about this show.
You asked me if I'd heard about The Prisoner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you even see me? Have I even been here?
Been here the whole time, Kyle.
6 years.
Right, yeah. So here we are, finally starting to talk about The Prisoner. Now, Melissa, you are dressed in a striped shirt and a straw hat, much akin to a bunch of the characters in this show.
Right.
So bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I describe the fashion sense of the village as coastal mod.
I was thinking about that too. We'll get into that more in depth down the road, but
we'll
it's
talk
an
about the
interesting
hats.
looking show for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a show. I was trying to remember the first time I heard about it. I want to say there was some reference to it on The Simpsons. I can't even picture what the episode would be. Okay. And I think my dad explained to us that was some British sci-fi show I watched when I was a kid. It was about this spy who got sent to this creepy village, and he was stuck there, and they took away his name and they gave him a number. And if he tried to escape, a bubble got him.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean a bubble got him?
Yeah. You know,
and it's
a bubble.
This ridiculous premise has lived in my head for like 20 something years. I remember trying to explain this to somebody, and we were in a place where my service on my phone wasn't good. This was several years ago. And I'm trying to tell her, this is real. I swear this is real. And she's like, that can't be real. A bubble didn't get him. What do you mean a bubble? There's
Again, you know, a bubble.
A big balloon. It's called the Rover. We should address it by its proper name. This big attack balloon is known as the Rover.
Yeah.
I was so happy to actually watch this thing and to know that it lived up to the legend in my head of this wonderfully weird show. And there are so many cases where a quote in pop culture is not the line from the actual thing. There's no Luke, I am your father. There's no play it again, Sam, or whatever. Great to know that he literally does shout, I am not a number. I am a free man. Every single episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've already kind of mentioned the premise. I knew nothing about this show really going in, except there was some weird like weather balloon like thing that would attack people
literally
every
what it
so
is.
often. Yeah. And that's the finale of this show. Took some wild swings. That was it. That's all I knew. Didn't know anything else about this show, but it intrigued me. And it was like, hey, for a show in the 60s, for it to take such wild swings, like that was something of note.
Yes.
And like maybe people understood it then, maybe they didn't, who knows? It's kind of a cult classic nowadays. But it's not something you would really expect from a show from that time. And yeah, I have to say, absolutely held up its end of the
Yes.
like they took some wild swings at the end here,
I,
which are
this
was
is
just
episode
bonkers.
this is episode 299. You and I have seen a lot of weird things. This is in the top 5. This
Oh
show
yeah,
is truly strange, and not in the ways you think it's going to be strange. It's less a twist and more of a general atmosphere of surreality and absurdity and playing with the form and playing with your expectations. And I was reading about how controversial the finale was. And Patrick McGowan, who not only starred in the show, but like created it, wrote and directed that final episode, he was like, I had to go into hiding for a little while
yep.
after the finale. People were mad. And I'm like, were those folks not there for the previous 16 episodes? It's not.
I mean,
it's an escalation, but it's not that much of an escalation. This thing was weird from the beginning.
Yeah, it was weird from the beginning, but even then, like, this show has a central mystery, right? The main character, who comes to be known as Number 6, resigns from his job in some kind of British intelligence. We're not sure exactly what. He is some kind of spy, and he resigns suddenly and forcefully. And they're confused as to why he's resigning, and he won't tell them. And so they think that he has some kind of information or something is about to happen. He knows something, and that's why he's resigning. And as a result, yeah, they gas him and then stick him on this weird little island village thing that is just like this quaint European town.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's stuck there. He's trapped there, and the whole thing is just weird and bizarre. And yeah, you do feel like you're going to learn what is the information that he does have. Why is he Number 6? Why does Number 2 keep changing? Who is Number 1? Like, there are some things of like, what's really going on here? And I know at one point when I was pitching this last week, or at least explaining, I guess not pitching it. You had said that this was potentially one of the inspirations for Lost. You know, a show about a survivors trapped on an island where weird things are happening, right?
Yes.
You know,
it was at least brought up a lot when Lost first came out. Like TV Guide or Entertainment Weekly would say, it's Gilligan's Island meets The Prisoner. I've known this as a reference point for a long time. And now that I've seen it, I can really see what an influence it has been on decades of things that have followed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I feel like it's in a similar boat where people get caught up in the like who is Number 1? What's happening here? What is the mystery of this island? Who really runs this place?
We're not sure if it's an island or like on a coast somewhere. Where you are is part of the big
on one
mystery.
side. There's like forest and mountains on the other, right? Like
which is one of the most eerie things of the show. In that first episode where he wakes up in the village and he tries to go to a little store and buy a map, and he opens the map and it looks completely normal, but the mountains are just labeled the mountains.
Yeah, the mountains.
The sea. No names. Don't ask.
But yeah, and so I think you can get caught up in that stuff, and the show is really much more about the themes that it's playing with, the ideas, the metaphors, all that stuff. And so yeah, if you know that going in, maybe the end isn't as much of a wild swing, but it's still very different from the rest of the show.
Mm.
it's just that much more crazy. And so yeah, it holds up for sure. I enjoyed this a lot. This was a blast. A blast
Mm-hmm.
to
And
watch.
it's easy to get to. You can watch it
Yeah,
on Prime or Freevee, Tubi, Pluto. All of those have The
it's all
Prisoner.
over. I think YouTube even has it. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Good. I'm happy
something
it's
like that.
accessible.
Excuse me. Yeah. Um, any other kind of stuff you want to mention that's spoiler free
I
about this?
I'll mention the structure that in the society where everybody has a number, the leader of the village is number 2, and every episode number 2 changes. It is a new actor. The show's formatting and that it's kind of serialized and kind of episodic. I don't know, but that feels unusual for the time. And I looked it up as a comparison point. At the time the show came out, Doctor Who was only on its second Doctor.
Mm, okay. Yeah.
So this was really ahead of its time, and we have a character who changes every episode, even.
Yeah.
We're going to have like 15 different number 2s.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Yeah, I think the only other like the way I would describe this show, like the feeling of this show, you mentioned the word surreal. It very much has a surrealist feeling. I've heard it described as Kafka-esque,
Mm,
Orwellian at times.
yeah.
I would even go as far to say like it's as Dada as you can be without really actually being Dadaist. Like it still has to have a
Good
plot
point.
and a structure, which is
Yes.
the
Mm,
opposite of what Dadaism is. But there
yes.
is just this like nonsense to it
Yeah. It
that is just
it
like, huh, this is
reminded
weird. This is bizarre.
it reminded me of Samuel Beckett plays. It reminded me of Rene Matisse paintings.
Mhm.
It feels multimedia, even though it is strictly a television show.
Yeah. Um, it's an interesting one for sure. It's only 17 episodes, so it's not even super long. But yeah,
Mhm.
I recommend checking it out for sure, for sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I guess with that, we should get into a quick break for housekeeping. And when we come back, we will dive a little more in depth to the show and start breaking it down. So we will be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at thewhatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. All right, and we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. It means a ton. We love you a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Over on the Pilots Club, we got our episode of Homecoming out. This is the Amazon Prime television show based off the audio fiction podcast of the same name. Some crazy stuff happening over there in that show. I really liked that one a lot. We got to talk about the pilot and the different like formats and aspect ratios they use in that show. The interesting like filming techniques that they do over there on that one. It was good. It was fun. directed by Sam Esmail too. So
Mm-hmm.
good stuff. Over on the Free Pilots Club, we also just released our episode on Small Wonder, which is a sitcom about a family who adopts a little robot girl. It looks exactly like a little girl, but she's a robot doing robot things, trying to look not like a robot and convince the neighbors that she's a real girl. So there you go. Good fun with that one too. Let's see. Right here on the review show, last month we wrapped up our French cinema month. That was all in honor of the Paris Olympics, which I guess are closing today. The closing ceremony is the day that we are recording this here podcast.
What's the percentage of likelihood that Daft Punk is there? That's all I want.
I don't know if they'll make an appearance. I don't think they're playing. I don't think they play anymore. Period.
But for the Olympics?
I don't know.
Olympics.
I don't know. I've heard oh god, I'm not hip with the music top 40s nowadays. What's her name? Did her and her brother do the stuff?
Billie Eilish, Phineas O'Connell.
I think she's performing one of the artists. I think. But who knows? Don't listen to me because obviously I don't know.
2-time Oscar winner.
Yeah,
that's Olympics caliber.
Sure,
she won the Olympics for writing songs for movies.
Indeed. Let's see, over on the Reactor Core, or actually, I guess we didn't even really say what we did for French Cinema Month yet.
Oh, we did Titan, which is a movie from, I want to say, 2021, a recent film, a body horror film, a very strange and surprising ride.
Oh, yeah.
And then we watched The Umbrellas of Cherbourg from back in the 60s, a more traditional on the surface piece of French cinema, but also strange in its own ways. That is a Technicolor musical. Good variety of experiences for French Cinema Month.
Indeed. Good opposite ends of the spectrum there. Then over on the Captain's Log, last week was our wrap up for all of the announcements and stuff coming out of Comic-Con. We also just had D23 happen this weekend, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that on our next episode of the Captain's Log as well. So lots of
a lot of time
things
needed for me to be a big theme park nerd. Theme parks is where the big news was this weekend.
Interesting. Okay. That stuff hasn't even made my radar.
Oh boy, Kyle, get ready.
Buckle
Buy
up.
your tickets now.
And then over on the Reactor Core, of course, we have our thoughts all on the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie for you guys to go check out. So yeah, lots of stuff for you guys to check out right now here at the Whatnauts. Exciting times, to say the least.
Yes.
But let's get into spoilers for The Prisoner. Bam. There we go. Okay. Spoilers for The Prisoner. Oh boy, this is so hard to know where to start because there's so many interesting things here that's happening. Can we start? Let's start with the opening of this show because I think they do something. I tend to overuse the word interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily the right word. Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily the right word for what I'm about to talk about here because they do the opening scene where he is driving down the road as fast as he can to get into the office and be like, I resign. And he slams it down and they're all like, what? Why? And he's just like, I'm my own man. I won't say.
And this is dialogueless. You are saying things nobody says. It is just an instrumental opening It is a diegetic part of the first episode, and then is played like it's the opening credits in all subsequent episodes. So that if you are just randomly
Correct.
watching episode 8, the premise of the show. He drives in his funny Lotus sports car, slams down the resignation notice, yells. We don't hear what he yells. Then we see his file being stamped with resigned, and then they put his photo on a typewriter and type a
X it
bunch of
out. Yeah.
X's over it in the shape of an X. And then the sorting machine in a little room that clearly has a matte painting in it. And I love an obvious matte painting in an old piece of movies or television. Like spits his file into a drawer marked resigned.
Yeah. So it's everything you need to know about like what the initial setup is for him to be at this island. Because then he goes back to his house and he's obviously packing things to get away. But then some guy in like a top hat is obviously following him and comes to his front door, and through the keyhole of his front door pumps in enough gas to knock him out. Who knows exactly how big his little apartment is, but obviously it had to either be a lot of gas or just very potent. And then when he wakes up, he's in a room that looks exactly like his old bedroom, but now he's on this mysterious village somewhere else, completely different surroundings, has no idea where he is, right?
They've taken his clothes. Now
Yeah.
he wears a sporty little black and white blazer and Keds.
Yeah.
I love the leisurely look of village wear.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. But he looks out on this village, and just like bright, colorful umbrellas and clothes. These like striped clothes that, if they were all just black and white, would look like a prisoner uniform.
True,
but they're like orange and blue and red and white and yellow and green and just very vibrant primary colors is what they all are. Like if you think of like a beach ball, it's almost like that. They're almost wearing the colors of a beach ball, or those big like
a hot air
parachute
balloon
things. Like a hot air balloon.
There's weird details, like lots of people wearing capelets, like just half-length capes, lots of hats. Lots of women wearing hats that are not traditionally feminine hats. You don't have like an I'm going to church hat. You have a lot of women in bucket hats, little straw boaters, like alpine mountaineering little felt caps.
Yeah.
Hats all over the place.
Yeah, and like you can't even nail down like what type of village this is just by like the architecture is like, okay, well, maybe there's some German influence in here, but it's also a coastal town, so maybe a little more Italian, but it's not Italian. But it's really, the whole thing is just strange.
It feels generally European. It feels like it's out of like the Euro village of a theme park or something. It's all of Epcot in a blender.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that this whole intro is of note and is important because it tells you everything you need to know. Because back in the 60s, this was a time when you couldn't watch this on a streaming service. That didn't exist, right? You couldn't tape it. You couldn't like. So if you just happened to catch a random episode, you still kind of needed to know the premise. And I think having the opening credits be this like mostly dialogueless until it gets to the parts of the episode 1 that we then see in later episodes where he's trying to escape and can't escape the island, and like you're now number 6, so who's number 1? Right. It's everything you need to know, and then you're off to the races with whatever escape attempt or experiment happens to be on TV that week.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was real strong. It was just an interesting reminder of like how do you do a television show like that where
Yes.
details matter. There is some kind of building up, some lore, some mystery to solve, but also you can't really go too far into it every episode.
Yeah, we start with a lot of episodes where he is trying to escape, including mailing himself in a box back to London.
Yeah.
There's a terrific episode where he wakes up, nobody is around. The village is deserted. And nobody is there to call the rover bubble to get him. So he takes some wood, he builds himself a raft, he sails away. He's sailing for like 3 weeks. Like a ship, he does sneak on a ship. He does get back on the land. He makes his way back to London. He meets with his old bosses. He's trying to tell them there's a sinister village. We got to go find it. He's flying in a helicopter, like around the sea. They've geographically tried to pinpoint where it is based on his travel times and his direction. He sees it from above. He's like, there, fly closer. That's it. That's the village. And they fly closer, and then they just drop him from the helicopter with a parachute.
All right.
Just has to go right back there.
Yeah.
It's so funny. This is not a comedy. But every once in a while, there is a situation that is so absurd, I would laugh and laugh.
Yeah.
So we have a couple escape attempts.
It is absurdist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. My favorite episode, and one of the episodes that does not focus on an escape plot, I wish they had time and space to explore more of what you could do with just spending time in the village and what weird projects he could get up to. There's an episode where like he has to run to be the new number 2. There's a little election. There's an episode where there's like an art fair, all of these things, all these community events. And there's one where just this episode description is the funniest thing I've ever read. The episode is called The Schizoid Man. And in his sleep, the number 2 and his cronies change number 6's appearance. So he looks like a completely different man. He wakes up. He looks different. He has a number 12 pinned to his chest. He goes to number 2 and he's like, I'm not number 12. I'm number 6. And they're like, no, you're number 12. And we have a mission for you, number 12. You need to infiltrate and steal the life of another member of the village. His name is number 6. So now it's number 6. Number 6 as number 12 facing off against another number 6. And like, who's that guy? And where did he come from?
No one
knows.
Now
6 as 12 must become 6.
Yeah, they're running all these experiments on him to try and get him to slip up and tell whatever this information is that he has in his head. They do things like trying to get into his dreams. I liked that episode a lot, where they had like 3 different dream sequences of them like trying to trick him to signaling what it was in his sleep. And every time he caught on and was like, but this is my dream. I'm in control here, right?
Yes.
And they to the point where then he, before they do it the third time, he goes in and like tampers with all of their stuff to like turn the experiment back on them somehow. I thought that one was fantastic. But yeah, then they do these weird things of like, well, what if we make him believe he's someone else and he has to get the information from someone else who he thinks is number 6, and then maybe he'll and it's just ridiculous stuff. Even towards the end, in the penultimate episode, they're like, what if we like retake you through your life? Let's hypnotize you and retake you through your life from the moment you are a baby to like when you're in school to when you're graduating from college to when you get your first job as a spy to right, like all this stuff. Like, is there something in that will trigger and you'll be like, oh, this information, here it is, let me just, and they're all just kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so much fun to watch.
The details of them, like in the episode The Schizoid Man, they overnight, they drug him while he's sleeping so they can work on him, completely change his face. They make him grow a mustache. And then when he wakes up and they tell him he's 12 and he has to pretend to be 6, they make him shave the mustache off. This mustache that he had for 8 hours of his life.
Yeah.
The amount of effort that goes into it is astounding and so silly. And a point they keep repeating is that we need this information from him, but we can't break him. Like, he will serve some larger purpose even after we learn this information from him. He's a good agent. Whoever it is that's pulling the strings, like, still wants to use him. So that's why they can't just regular old, Jack Bauer and 24 torture him to get this information out of him. They have to do these weird mind games and play acting to try and get him to confess on his own.
I feel like if they knew what information was in his, or like what kind of information in his head, then some kind of torture might be more not appropriate, but like that's like what they would have gone for. But because they don't know the nature of what this information is, they don't know, like, do we need to keep whatever connection that he may have had there? Can we use that? Can we, like, that's why they don't want to break him. But I think what compounds the whole mystery is that the other people on the island also seem, or in this village, also seem to both be working for the people and trapped there at the same time. Like, there's a mix of both, and they often, like, that line is blurred.
There's, when we talked about the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, did I tell you about this original idea for Skyfall? And I don't know anymore if this was an actual thing they were trying to do, that they said, yes, that was one of our early plans before we changed it and gave you the Skyfall you know and love, or if this is like a rumor or an urban legend. I don't know where it stands in fact, but it's a story I've heard that in the original script for Skyfall, it was pretty much the same, where people keep kind of teasing James Bond with the idea of Skyfall. And all you know is this is a hot button topic. This is a raw electric wire. He doesn't want to touch it. Don't make him think about or go to whatever Skyfall is. And when he gets there and you learn that it was his old family estate that he doesn't want to go back to after he was orphaned. And like the old family, like caretaker and gardener and groundskeeper is there. Originally, Skyfall was going to be where retired spies were sent. Sure. And that character was going to be played by Sean Connery. The original Bond. Yeah. This show feels very much like that. They might have had the prisoner in their minds when that idea was conceived. If it was legitimately conceived. Again, I forget if this happened or if this is like an urban legend I'm misremembering. But there is an old folks home in the village, and it does seem like those people there are retired spies. You know too much to be out in the world, but we can't or don't want to kill you, either for, out of mercy or out of logistical need. We might still need something out of you in the future. You are sent to the village, and you don't have a name. You only have a number. Your life is kind of controlled, but also like you just get to paint and play chess and walk around this quaint little village. Like, it does seem peaceful enough. Most of the people there in the village seem content with their lives. There's a lot of younger people there, not kids, but, like folks in their 20s or 30s. Yeah. And it's not clear. It seems like a lot of them are hired or brought in to fill out the village and to achieve some goal of the higher ups. You are here to spy on number 6. You're here to get something out of them. But there is that mystery, what has like a 25-year-old really screwed up? Is this like some intense version of Slow Horses where you do bad at your job and you get sent to Slough House? If you do so bad, you've gone past Slough House and you have to go to the village.
But then, like, there's other weird scenes that, like, there's obviously characters who are there that have nothing to do with number 6, period.
Yeah, they're just living a life.
And then there's also time, like, this village seems to have a parade about something every week. And
there's the citizens are just like these funny little lemmings. They're all a mob. They will do anything. What's the opposite of an angry mob? It's these people. They're not holding torches. They're just holding like parasols and signs with a big picture of somebody's face on it and a banner that says
vote number
Hooray!
2. Yeah.
Right. You're right. They parade constantly.
So much. But the weird thing about that is in some of those scenes where they're doing a parade, they are playing like cheers and crowds clapping and all. You hear that sound, but it's not necessarily coming from the people themselves.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? They're often just like real straight face, like resting bitch face, like almost unhappy to be there. And that is like another weird mystery of this whole thing. Like, we know there are speakers like set up around town for like an intercom system or to let people know of some kind of alarm or warning or something like that. But that just, it seems like a really strange use of like, you guys are prisoners, be happy. And like, no, we're stuck here parading around once a week. This sucks.
Yeah, we have to parade. We have to wear our little number badges and our dumb beach ball capes. Yeah. And if we don't wear the beach ball capes, a beach ball will suffocate us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Rover.
Sure. Absolutely. Episode 1, all of a sudden something happens. Everyone freezes, standing still. Number 6 is kind of confused on what's happening. He's not standing like perfectly still, but he's enough of like what is happening around me that he's still. And yeah, there is this one guy in the crowd who starts running away, and this white ball comes up out of the fountain and like floats towards him. It's like the size of a, I don't know. I don't know how I would like those giant balls you see at Target. They're like, it's bigger than that, maybe twice that size.
It is like man-sized. It's, probably 6 feet across.
Sure. Yeah.
Large.
But it is this like opaque white balloon ball thing. And it will crush people. It will like jump on top of them and suffocate them with the like plastic thing that is like itself. Yeah, it's kind of
there's some creepy shots. Yeah. What I love about Rover, one of my favorite things is something that is right on the borderline between scary and stupid. And that's what Rover is. It's such eerie, unnerving imagery. And part of the eeriness is, you expect me to be scared of this? Why is that so scary? Oh no, now I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
Like you go on a whole journey with Rover.
But it's also like there are times in the show where, as creepy as it is or as scary as it can be, it also is like weirdly harmless. Like it just kind of wants to like hurdle you back or like herd you back to whatever. Like, hey, no, let's not escape. Let's go back here, right? And there's a time where he number 6 is like trying to escape by helicopter, and the ball has been alerted to him. Rover has been alerted to him, and it's closing in. But number 6 is like moving slowly enough that the ball's not really doing anything as he like slowly gets into this helicopter, and it just kind of sits there. It is like slowly just rolling around in the wind, and it's just like, oh, all right, hey there, little guy. All right, I'm gonna
I
go.
So I found this at a used bookstore. It is the official prisoner companion, the only guide to the most original and innovative TV series of all time.
There you
This is a
go.
very I've only flipped through it a little bit, but it's a very intense book full of praise. It uses a lot of superlative language like that. Authors Matthew White and Jafar Ali. And I forget if I read this in this book or in the Wikipedia page, but it was said that in early drafts of the script, before they came up with the idea of the rover bubble, that role was going to be played by a empty, driverless, like Volkswagen,
Mm.
painted completely white with a little blue blinking light on top. It was like a
Like
police
a little
car
cop car, yeah.
but with nobody in it. Like the car is the police. It is a little sentient car
Thanks,
that follows
Herbie.
you around and will run you over. Which is also an idea I also like. Does not have the power of Rover the Bubble, but I don't mind that. Interesting first idea.
I think is the challenge of that, of like how do, like, what is the law enforcement of this village? How do we do that? And a car, interesting idea, but then like how does it get people inside it? Does it just run them over and kill them? Does it just, like, what does it do?
Which is
like,
more grisly and less of like an abstract.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not as
and
surreal.
also there aren't cars in the village. There's just sort of like little pedicabs and like bikes.
Almost like these golf cart kind of things.
Yes, very much golf carts. And I wonder if that was like a logistical choice. Like it's easier for us to only have golf carts instead of having real cars on whatever the set is. Maybe it's easier for the performers. It's like a different like license or insurance or pay grade thing if you're not driving a real car. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, I think in my time watching this show, I was really interested in, I think, maybe the first 3 episodes, and then like the final 5 episodes ish, and then like the stuff that was in between was a lot less interesting for me because it just kind of kept repeating the same things over. Oh, it's another escape attempt. Oh, it's another experiment to see if they can get the info out. It's not that they were bad at episodes in the slightest, but it felt a little repetitive to me in that sense. But yeah, immediately started perking up when they started playing with the format, like not just another escape attempt, but like in the same way when we watched Fringe, or how some modern sitcoms or cop dramas or superhero shows will play with, okay, it's all the same actors, but this episode is set in the 1950s, or here's an episode where it's a musical, right? They do a similar thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna do an episode where it's the Wild West, right?
And it has the same style of opening. Yeah. But instead of him driving his sports car to the office and slamming
something,
right, it's the same thing, but he's on a horse and he slams down his sheriff's badge.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Like, I love that stuff.
I did think of Fringe when we watched. We talked so much about how we loved that the opening credits to Fringe would change depending on when in time and reality you were in that sci-fi series. I'm like, we would not have that if it wasn't for number 6 on a horse in this one episode.
Right.
And it's not until the very end that you find out why it's a Western. And I liked living in that ambiguity of, is this something number 2 is doing to number 6? Or is this something the show is doing to us?
Right. Yeah. I was starting to think like, yeah, I mean, they have TVs in their apartments. Like, we've seen that stuff. Like, what does the village do for entertainment? right? And I was wondering
Parade.
if right, yeah, I was wondering if this was some kind of production put on by the village somehow
Hmm.
to for entertainment, and it just happens to mirror his story, right? And like that is also some kind of other experiment of like, can we get him to slip up in this show, right? Would that um yeah, like stuff like that was really interesting, or this whole idea of the rocket ship to the moon one. That was a wild one. That one went
Yeah.
multiple places that it was not
Yes.
expecting.
And again,
um
it's not until the very end that you realize what the trick is. Like the end of the Wild West episode, which is a great Western pastiche. I
yeah,
really like living in that world
it's
for a
great.
little bit. Uh, I At the end of that, you realize he's been kind of hypnotized, kind of put in like a virtual reality thing.
Yeah,
And the people he's been seeing are like the actual number two for that week, and other citizens of the village. They've been playing out this story. Some guy was trying to murder this girl, and now he has murdered her in real life in the village. Ambiguously. She like says something and then collapses as if she's dead, but it's not exactly clear. It's like, well, if you were suffocated, you wouldn't have said that final sentence. So I don't know what's killing you now. But regardless. And then at the end of this one really silly episode, like where number 6 is back in London, you have no idea how or why or when this is. You don't know if this is a fantasy or a flashback or what.
yeah,
He's trying to get to the scientist, and the scientist's daughter keeps putting him through all of these different traps and trials to keep him away. And he has to go through like a Scooby-Doo booby-trapped mansion. And then he goes to a Bond villain lair where everybody's dressed like Napoleon, and there's a rocket ship to the moon. And then it turns out that
at
this is
one
a
point he's
bedtime.
in the like Sherlock Holmes outfit, and she's like
Yes.
her, like his Moriarty, like always one step ahead, you'll never catch
Yes.
me kind of thing. The whole thing is just ridiculous.
And at the end, you find out that number two's idea this week has been to put him in a room with children, which we've never seen in the village before.
Yeah.
They brought in children to the village.
Yeah.
Who knows who those children are or what their life is like, but they were brought in, and apparently somehow number 6 was responsible for caring for them for the night. And what we have just seen is him making up a bedtime story for them.
Yeah, that somehow
And
involves
number 2
Napoleon and his men and a rocket ship and Sherlock Holmes and a weird
and number
carnival.
2 was like,
yeah.
Dang it. I was hoping if we put him around children, innocent children, he'd let his guard drop. He'd be more of himself. He wouldn't be playing a cat and mouse game. He would give us some sort of hint as to what his secret is. But no, he recognized this as a ploy. Of course he did. There's no children in the village. What's going on? And he told them an utter fantasy.
Which is kind of baffling to me. In this whole thing, he knows he's in a village with constant surveillance. There's statues with cameras in them that will like move and watch. Like he knows this from the get-go, basically. So as a spy, like he knows he's being watched constantly. Why would number 2 ever think he would just randomly say it to some children? Or like some of these experiments make zero sense. Of just like he knows he's being watched.
Yeah.
It's just kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I loved these like handful of final episodes where they do start playing with like the format of the show itself. I thought that was some great stuff. Even the penultimate episode, which I mentioned before, which they actually bring back a former number 2 to kind of redo some experiments.
Which and that was my favorite number 2. It's the one who's in the episode. They're all great. We have a good variety of numbers too that all do they all play at a slightly different angle. Some of them are more sinister or more bureaucratic, or some are a little friendlier, a little chummier. The one from the art contest episode where everybody has just painted him.
He's great. Yeah.
I liked him. I was
Fantastic
happy he came
actor.
back.
Yeah, he's back, but he's the one that is leading number 6 through this experiment to like, let's redo your life story here. And they are in this really weird, like empty giant warehouse room that's mostly dark. And there's like a seesaw, a play place, like wooden toy horse thing that like a child can sit on and bounce on. And there's like just all these things that signify like different ages in his life. There's the school building, or at least the front door of it. I liked the idea of this experiment. I felt this one also kind of went on a little long, but at the same time, if it was only like a half-hour episode, I probably would have felt like it was too fast. Like, I like that it drags on and gets to be this monotonous kind of thing where they're almost arguing, and number 2 is trying to then turn the experiment back on him. Like, no, let me drive this guy crazy, which is kind of what that episode turns out to be. Is they bring in this older number 2 to run this experiment, but it's another number 2 who's trying to prove a point that he, like, this guy doesn't have what it takes, and so he's using number 6 to get at this number 2. It's a whole convoluted mess, but it's great. I liked this twist at the end. And then this promise of like all will be revealed next episode, right? It was just good fun stuff.
My streaming service accidentally, like when I was trying to go from episode 15 to 16, it somehow skipped to episode 17, which opens with a recap of episode 16. But I thought I was watching episode 16. And I thought, this show has really done it to structure a whole episode in these brief little clips with only the meat of the story in there, it's a previously on. I thought this show is so strange. I thought the previously on just was the episode. I'm like, weird editing choice, but okay, I'll go with you.
Yeah, it's especially in the midst of all these ones where it's like, okay, this one's a Western. Right. This one has Napoleon, right? Yeah, you just feel like
the show could do anything.
So there was some big experiment that they just did. We're about to see the aftermath of that.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense. Did you stop in the midst of that and then go back? When did you figure out that you missed it?
I think I made it like 3 minutes in. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I skipped something. And then I went back and I watched all of episode 16, which is one of my favorites. It really zooms in. It's just number 2 and number 6 and the butler.
The butler.
The strange little silent man who you see in every episode, who seems to be like a neutral party, like working for number 2, but not directly personally sinister. It is a character that number 2, that number 6 ends up having a rapport with at the end. The man doesn't speak, but he's like, I get that you're kind of on my side. And he's like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I will help you escape.
That actor is Angelo Scott. And he was the only other actor credited as a co-star of the show there. Yeah.
He's the only other person in every episode.
Yeah. Which I liked him a lot. I liked him at the like end, which we'll get to.
Yes.
When him and number 6 are running down the street and he's like holding his hand and dragging him along. It was great. But he's not a little person. I don't even know if that's the right term. He's not a midget, right? He's but he is really short. He has to have been like 5 feet tall. Like
again, yes, I do not know if he is medically a little person. I don't know if it matters, but it's just sort of unusual set dressing, something that makes that character stand out, that makes you remember him.
Yes.
Um,
Almost like the guy in Twin Peaks, the like dancing
maybe,
guy in the red
yeah,
room.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that casting choice of that little person was inspired by this. I don't know. There's so much stuff in this show that I looked at,
Mm-hmm.
and I could think of things I've seen and stuff in years since that reminded me of it. And
Oh,
I'm like,
he's in
is everything pulling from The Prisoner? Is The Prisoner one of like the core texts of the 20th century?
Yeah. He's also in an uncredited role as an Oompa Loompa in the 1971 Willy Wonka
Oh,
and the Chocolate Factory. I just looked up his
I
Wikipedia page here.
what? Wow, way to work, Angelo.
Yeah.
I'll next time I watch it. Now that I've seen this man's face so many times, I will look out for him.
He was great.
Interesting addition to the show. Love that we have this one other familiar face to look forward to every episode. This one outlier from the game, like number 6 himself.
Yeah.
It is so and he's never referred to in the episode where number 2 declares like degree absolute. Put me in a chamber with number 2, just him and me, mano a mano. It's never mentioned. And then also the butler will be there. Like nobody ever addresses him. He's just there. He's like a specter or something. I love all the weird set dressing. I don't want to reduce this man to set dressing, but the details that don't immediately factor into whatever the plot is, but just live in your mind and embellish the entire experience. There's an episode, I forget what episode this is. It's one of the first handful of them where number 6 is running through whatever that compound is where number 2 lives. Not lives, but like operates, where there's the egg chair and the 2 guys on the seesaw.
Yeah.
He's running around and trying to escape, and he opens a door, and inside the door is this little room with the floor covered in straw like it's an animal pen. And one of the I don't even know if it's always one rover or if there's multiple rovers. But Rover is in there and surrounded by like 6 men sitting in chairs in a semicircle facing Rover in the corner. And they turn around and they're all wearing sunglasses in this dimly lit room. And then number 6 just closes the door and keeps running.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. What was that like? Also, early on, there was like he looked down that one room and there was like this hallway lit in red, and there were like 4 or 5 people like sitting on the floor, like obviously in some kind of like trance or something. Like there's so much weird stuff that's happening there.
The episode where he's deemed unmutual and he has to go through like a Clockwork Orange procedure to make him agreeable. You see some other guy being put through that.
That was, I'm sure, a huge influence on this show, as the novel came out a handful of years before the show came out.
I was going to Google when the movie was, yes.
The movie wasn't until the 70s, but yeah, the novel was already out. And yeah, I would say even the finale of this show feels there is a certain character that feels very inspired by A Clockwork or one flew over the cuckoo's nest kind of stuff. But yeah, yeah, I like. There's so much stuff that I think the show wants you to read into or start to think about, but then doesn't answer it for you. Like obviously there are a number of themes in I think the most obvious one is the idea of like, we want you to conform and be a part of this village here and fall in line with what we want you to do, versus no, I'm my own man, right? This idea of I'm an individual, let me make up, like let me be the master of my own fate, my own life, all of that stuff. I think in a weird way, in the way that they want the information on his head. They want him in formation. But right,
Yes.
like there
Yes.
is some stuff that is just like blatantly obvious like that. But then there's weird symbolism all throughout. Um, the repeating imagery of this bicycle with the giant front wheel and the small one
Yeah,
behind it.
the penny
What is the
farthing.
significance is of that?
Yes.
I don't know. I have no
It doesn't
idea.
come in. You never really see anybody on one, but you see it. There's one in like number two's lair that's just hanging out back there.
Yeah,
Number two doesn't get on it. It's one of those
it's not
bicycles. It's got like a
mentioned,
little
but it's
awning.
on all of their like name tags thing with the
Yeah, what does
numbers
it
that's there.
mean?
Yeah, who knows?
I I I love not knowing things. I'm happy this show gave that to me. It's better that I don't know. I love to wonder. I love to be just utterly befuddled and confused, just
Yeah,
puzzled forever, lying awake at night. What's the deal with the rover in the room covered with hay like it's an animal who has waste? It's is it an
it
animal who
eats
has
something.
waste?
Do they need to feed it somehow? Um,
Why are you looking at it? What does it do?
Even yeah, like why do these rooms that like number two operates out of? Why do they look like some science fiction thing? Like it's not even like a laboratory for like science experiments, even though they do a number of experiments in that. It looks more like an alien ship. Like it almost looks like some weird. They even have like a weird throne in the back with like a glowing blue eyeball like in the back there. It's just the whole thing is just strange. Um and I like that the show plays with stuff like that and won't necessarily give you an answer on all of it. Um, and I think that really plays into the finale of this show. Are you ready to move
Yeah,
on to
let's
the
get into this
finale
thing.
here? This whole thing is just on another level. It's bizarre. Like we've said that a lot. The whole show is bizarre. But yeah, almost immediately they are swinging for the fences. You're brought into this room that is that appears to be in this like underground cave. This is the most like Bond villain layer there is without it
Yes.
actually being a villain
What
layer per
down
se.
down to all of the soldiers and like
Yes.
scientists walking around. We're in Moonraker right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's this like big metallic silo with the big number one painted on it and that giant like robotic eyeball thing that's on there. But then you also have this guy that is in this like very much like European British Parliament, like a judge's outfit. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
he's
to
got the wig.
call that exactly. He's in that, and then seated behind him is this almost like UN style, uh, like rows of chairs with like name tags on them, but they're not name tags; they're concepts. And
Yes.
seated at each concept is a person in these like hooded white robes with a mask on. The mask is almost like the drama masks of like
Yeah.
but like split down the middle. One is white, one is black. And they're kind of the peanut gallery in like in front of that is also this like elevated throne, this blue like ornate throne that they have number 6 sit on. This whole thing seems to be like, hey, congratulations, we're out of experiments, we don't know what the fuck to do with you. Congratulations,
You've
you
beat
won.
us.
Yeah.
Like you killed a number 2. You just drove that man crazy and he had a heart attack.
Yeah. And
Well, there is some question about, did you murder him, or
how
did
did
he
you do
just
this?
collapse from the or did he just collapse from the stress of not being able to break you? How
Yeah.
did you win after a week's confinement in this weird experiment that was designed to break you? How'd you turn the tables? And yeah, it's gotten to the point where they're like, We commend you, number 6. We're not gonna restore your name, but you can have your old clothes back.
Yeah.
You sit on the throne. You're an individual. We respect you. You've beaten every number 2. Will you be our new number 2?
Which is
no election this time.
Yeah, there is this like, hey, we give up and we're so in awe of you that we want you to lead us. Or if you just want to finally go home, like we won't complain, man. We've done everything we could. There's no containing you, right? And in like, it's also an experiment of itself. It is very blatantly like, well, do you want to lead us and conform to everything we've done here, right? Or do you want to just continue to be an individual and go home and leave all of leave this society behind? But also, returning to society in its own way is just kind of falling in line, is not being like this is not an individualistic mindset, right? But then also being the top dog on this weird thing, like you're the only one in charge here. No one, like, you might be falling in line with what we have going on here, but you are the individual that can rule all of this, right? So there's this like play on all of it. He wants to go home. He ends up choosing to go home, but in the midst of this, chaos ensues. The guy from the Western episode that really is like this Clockwork Orange like character is brought back and kind of put on trial, but then he starts singing "Your knee bone's connected to," and everyone's like, shut him up, be quiet, like order in the court. And he just continues and singing, and everyone's singing and dancing, and the whole thing is wild. Then they resurrect that number 2 that just died.
They resurrect him and he's
a haircut and a shave.
Yeah.
He's a new man. He's also like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I died. I don't know. Like, everything is going wrong. The concept that is anarchism stands up and is like, he's a menace. He's a threat to society and everything we stand for, which is just not what anarchism is about. Also, right? Like, complete, just like, why is the guy that represents anarchy being like, this guy's an individual, he let no man rule him, how dare he? Right? Like, the smoke machines are going off. They give a moment to number 6 to give a speech, and he genuinely is like, you know what, I'll give a speech because I beat you all. Hell yeah. And he starts his speech off with the word I. Like, I am glad that blah, blah, blah. And the crowd behind him, these concepts, whenever he starts off his sentence with the word I, they're in the back, I. And he's just like, can you let me finish my sentence?
Yes.
And they won't. And I think this is where, as weird as it is, this is maybe the most, like, let's spoon feed you with who number 1 is here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start unraveling that mystery. It is I. Number 1 is the concept of the individual, the self, the singular, the I, the one. And it seems like they're trying to go for the, like, instead of some Bond villain, like, oh, it's you're the bad guy. It's more a reflection of self. It was you all along. Which is almost what I, like, at the end of the penultimate episode, I had this idea pop into my head of, like, what if number 6 had been here before? What if he was the number 1?
Like The Shining.
Yeah, what if he was the number 1 and he decided he didn't like it or realized what they were doing was evil or something like that, and that's what he escaped from. He went to that and be like, I resign. And they weren't sure why. So they like reinstitute him into the village as a member. And they don't go down that route exactly. But when you find out that the number one is just this like evil reflection of himself, it is like, all right, I'm not far off, right? Like he is in charge of the whole thing, whether he likes it or not. But yeah, it is just this whole big metaphorical thing rather than a like and it was MI5 all along. It was the Russians. It was this. It was America.
What answer could have been there to have been satisfying?
Yeah, I don't think there is a certain thing.
I like that it went abstract, metaphorical. Like you said, it's just like a chorus of concepts. None of this is stuff you've seen before. This is like a whole new vision for the final episode. It's really taken a sharp turn. He goes to number one. Number one is first seen as this blinking like robot. But it's like an eye. It's like it's a HAL, basically. A HAL 9000. Lots of Kubrick references in this episode. But then he goes inside this machine. He finds another person in the robe and the mask. He pulls the mask off, and then it's like a chimpanzee mask. And then he tears that mask
so
off.
hard.
For a second, I was like, aliens? Like, where are we going? I didn't even recognize it as a chimpanzee immediately. It's like, well, hold on. Huh? Creatures. We haven't had creatures. We just have Rover. Then he tears that off, yes, and it's another Patrick McGowan. What else would we have expected? The fact that it's this sort of Wizard of Oz imagery of a man behind a curtain, behind a curtain, behind a curtain, and that man is you. I've shown you this comic before. It's some comic somebody drew when the final season of Lost was airing, and everyone was like, what's going to happen? How are they going to pull this all together? How many more twists can they throw at us? And it's like Sawyer walking through the jungle, and he's like, Amelia Earhart, what are you doing here? And Amelia Earhart says, you're my son, and I'm your son. And then the comic says, tune in next week.
Clementine is Amelia Earhart?
This whole show operates on you're my son and I'm your son logic.
Yeah. I am you and you are me.
To all of us together. They're playing. Number 6 is led into this courtroom chamber through. It's like carved out of a cave, and studded throughout the cave walls are these jukeboxes. And they're playing the Beatles song All You Need Is Love, which is such an odd juxtaposition to what this show is, a show that doesn't really have love in it. We do see one episode. Occasionally there will be somebody in the village that number 6 has sympathy and empathy for, that he wants to watch out for, that he feels a sense of camaraderie with. But there's no like love interest. There's one episode where you find out where like he's again been changed into somebody else. He's been changed into somebody else, and he's sent back to London, and there he meets his fiance who's been waiting for him. But he can't say that he's him.
It's the like mind swap.
Yes, the mind swap episode. Different from being forced to grow a mustache and become a number 12 and then go lose the mustache and be number 6 again.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about that trampoline game. There's so much to get into. But this is a show that doesn't really have love as one of the major concepts in it. So it's an interesting addition. And to think that song was new when this episode must have come out. That's like if the series finale of a show right now entirely hinged on Miley Cyrus's Flowers or something like that. Like a song that just
Billie Eilish song, yeah.
Right.
Brat Summer happening in whatever show is happening now.
That song came out and somebody out there is like, this is the answer. This is how I'm going to write the end of Severance. It's going to end with a brat summer.
Honestly, yeah. I'm about it. I hope they have their brat summer in Severance season 2.
Or Yellow Jackets. That's the finale of Yellow Jackets, as you find out who that true brat is.
Yeah. So funny.
Who is Antler Brat? We've mentioned Kubrick projects a number of times. He's relevant to the time frame we are talking about. He's a director who can work in very strong aesthetics, some of which apply to this show. You know the Kubrick stare, right?
Yes,
where
absolutely.
Like somebody stares with like their brow forward and their jaw back, kind of slack jawed, looking just like so menacing and so thoughtless at the same time, like just animalistic. McGowan's got his own stare. He's got this McGowan stare that's the same format. It's the same jaw back, brow forward, but the McGowan stare is like the stare you give to somebody back who has been giving you a Kubrick stare. This is the stare you return a Kubrick stare with, is the stare that looks like shrewd and conniving and sly and a little bemused. He does a lot. He's a great leading man for this series.
It's interesting because his character, he has this like this wry smile, this charm to him, where he has the like. It seems like the thought in his head is, "Oh, I know," right? It's almost like he's saying like, "Oh yeah, I know. I'm one step ahead," right? But also he has that same look even when he's surprised or something, when he's unsure and confused. He still has that like, "But I know what's happening, even though I don't." And the way the show is put together, they will do these very quick cut shots of like a character almost like doing the Blue Steel look of just like right? And like they'll cut between that and like a picture of one of the like public speakers, like the speaker system that's there. It will show that and like zoom in dramatically, and it does that multiple times where it's like someone's face like zoom in on the speakers and it'll say like warning, or right, and then someone else's face, warning, someone else's face, warning. And it's also kind of absurd and frantic in its own way.
Yes.
It's interesting, but he often just has this like stare of like, I'm ready for action, but I don't know what's happening, but ooh, right? Like what? Huh? Who? Where?
He's ready to move at a moment's notice. This book described him as like a caged animal, like a prowling, pacing caged animal.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
In these final 2 episodes especially, you get a lot of very quick back and forth cuts that feel like it is somebody making a jokey video on YouTube. Like they are editing this. Sometimes the prisoner feels like a prisoner out of context video edited together. But no, that's what, nobody did that to it. It came that way.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, there's so much in here that is interesting that I know we could talk on for all sorts of time. Is there any other kind of final things you want to mention? We haven't really mentioned the music that's what was in this. They often do these like nursery rhyme instrumentals that I thought was interesting, or like it's both interesting and strange, and like, why this choice of music? What's happening here?
I mentioned earlier to you, I'll be a little late. I have a research project I have to finish. So, In 2009, Christopher Nolan was attached to direct a film version of this, but he later dropped out of the project. They made around like they made like a TV mini series in 2009 instead, which wasn't well received.
I've heard, nothing but like terrible things. Don't watch that.
Ian McKellen is number 2, which seems like that's probably a great performance. I might end up checking out once just for him. But there has been talks that maybe Christopher Nolan will return to The Prisoner, especially now that he has like the Best Picture winner, this multiple award-winning movie under his belt, like the second or third best movie of last year. Don't remember if it ended up beating Super Mario Brothers, but it's up there. Top 3. Could this be something he returns to? He has the clout to make a movie as weird as The Prisoner is. He could bring this to the big screen. Who knows?
Sure.
We don't know. It has not been confirmed. I'm looking at a Variety article from earlier this year that just says, some say it'll be a remake of the mystery thriller The Prisoner that'll work on next. Some say, who are some unknown. I could see how you have still not finished Tenet.
No. Well, listen, it happened again. Okay. It happened again. So the same thing that happened with Tenet. I was watching the movie Tenet. I couldn't sleep one night, so I started it late at night. Eventually paused it and went to bed. Came back the next day. Tenet had been removed from HBO Max. Melissa, we were about to start season 7 of Venture Burrows. It is no longer on HBO Max. It's not streaming anywhere right now. They have the movie on there, but they don't have seasons 1 through 7. So
they don't.
Right now, my partner and I are kind of out of luck on where to watch that unless we buy season 7. Yeah.
I recommend buying The Venture Brothers on physical media.
Show.
The disc commentaries are very worth it. But I could really see how The Prisoner could have been part of the DNA of Tenet, in that the main character in Tenet is known only as the protagonist. He does not have a name.
Right.
There is in Tenet, he wears an outfit that's very much like the outfit number 6 wears in the opening when he goes and turns in his resignation before he gets his little village uniform, which is a fairly neutral, basic outfit. It's like a buttoned up polo and a sport coat, but still, John David Washington rocks that same look at one point in Tenet. Yeah. I can see it.
There is like a weird, like almost time loop thing that's happening in The Prisoner, as well as the show ends with the same sequence that the show starts with.
Yes.
So yeah.
But I wanted to make a list. I went through Christopher Nolan's filmography and I collected a list of 12 actors who I think would make great numbers 2.
Awesome.
Now, if he brought this to film, who knows how many number 2s would actually be in there. I would love if Christopher Nolan made a film adaptation of The Prisoner that is 4 hours long and is a bunch of little vignettes. It's like an anthology movie, like Kinds of Kindness almost. But it's all just like, wakes up, it's another day and another number 2. But I looked for actors who can play menacing well or can play friendly very well, but maybe ride that line. A lot of our number 2s came off as more chummy, but you knew they were menacing. Some were outright menacing. Big variety here. Found some good gold. My list is James Urbaniak, Stephen Tobolowsky. All of these are actors who have been in a Nolan film. I went through IMDb. There's no newcomers here, although he is welcome to bring on a newcomer. Cast anyone you want, Chris. My words to you, Chris. Make The Prisoner. Put whoever you want in it. You're going to do it well. I have James Urbaniak. I have Stephen Tobolowsky. I have Harriet Sansom Harris, who I forgot was in Memento. What a find there. Andy Serkis. Rebecca Hall. Rami Malek.
Rami Malek would also be great. Yeah.
Burn Gorman, Mark
I-
Rylance.
I feel like Rami Malek would also just be a great number 6.
You know who my number 6 is?
Who's your number 6?
Again, picked out of the Christopher Nolan filmography. I thought, who would I love to see just look pissed off all the time? Who do I think has that iron will to see themselves through being vaguely, politely tortured over and over again? I want it to be Emily Blunt.
Huh. Sure. Yeah.
Picture the Magooan stare on her face. She can do it.
Yeah.
She's my number 6.
Okay.
Where did I leave off? John Lithgow, Mark Rylance, Elizabeth Debicki, Jack Quaid. Jack Quaid is so friendly. I think he would be the most disarming person to cast as number 2. He has played a ghost face before in a Scream movie, but for the most part, you picture Jack Quaid, you just picture your buddy, a real friendly guy. Let's make him be a little sinister.
He's done some good pissed off faces in The Boys.
Never seen The Boys. I don't even know if he's one of the boys or one of the boys who fights the boys.
Is that he's I think one of the main characters. I think I have that actor right. Is that it's
Yes, I know he's on The Boys. I don't but I don't know like what that show is.
I know it very
very vaguely. I know it's Carl Urban, who's one of the boys, and then he has more boys, and they don't like those superheroes.
Yeah.
And that's the end of my knowledge. And finally, an actor who was in Lost, but is, of course, a very strong presence on his own. If you add him in here, acts as a nice little Lost nod, but stands great on his own also. Let's get Nestor Carbonell up in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would even put a Terry O'Quinn in there as a great number 2.
I thought he was on my early list. I just started thinking of actors I wanted to see play a number 2 before I was like, no, but before I was like, wait, let me draft entirely out of the Nolan back catalog and see who I can get. And that was my list.
I don't know. I think the show works better as a television show. I don't know how, if you condense this down, I think the mystery really just kind of dissolves. Especially with how metaphorical all of the stuff ends up being at the end here. I feel like the show really drags it out and allows you to be okay with it being like, okay, there's not gonna be a specific answer of what that information is, because by the end of this show we still don't know what the information is. But yeah, I know I said earlier on I wasn't as into some of the episodes in the middle, but I felt that necessary to kind of get myself in the mindset of number 6, of the monotony of this. Well, same thing we do every night, Pinky, try to escape the village, right? It feels like that, and I think that time is necessary. But I would like to see a movie too. Who knows?
I would love if
I don't see
people
Nolan
thought
making this though.
He's not. When you've seen him do surrealist work, it's in something like Inception or the Planetscapes and Interstellar, which have a very different feel to them than this show. He's not a director known for color, especially.
Sure, yeah.
But I would like to see, if he would like to do so, him to live in this world, to play in the sandbox, to adopt its tools and resources.
Sure.
I don't know. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see people going to the theater thinking they're in for like just sort of an action sci-fi thriller, like another Tenet. And they're like,
and then it's something else
hold
entirely.
On. Yeah. I can't wait to see how Christopher Nolan makes Rover real. You know he has to do not just a practical rover, but in Oppenheimer, it's like, no, we're gonna do real bombs. I built a real killer bubble.
Hear me out. M. Night Shyamalan making The Prisoner.
You already made a movie called The Village.
The Village, yeah. But I feel like because everyone is expecting, like we said when we were real briefly talking about Trap on another podcast, everyone kind of already pits him as this, oh, he's the director with the twist, oftentimes to the viewer's detriment. I think you do yourself a disservice when you box him into to just that. I think he could have, but like he has the right level of flirting with that like uncanny valley. Like things are just weird. Things are bizarre. Put yes. Josh Hartnett as number 6. Right, M. Night Shyamalan, Josh Hartnett, great combo.
He plays number 2 himself,
right? Yeah, who knows? he can be the butler.
It should be an anthology film. Every director gets like 12 minutes to do their own little episode of The Prisoner. Yorgos Lanthimos, what's your The Prisoner?
Oh, yes.
David Fincher, what's your The Prisoner?
Yeah.
Please.
Whoever just
Danny Boyle's The Prisoner.
Long legs.
Osgood Perkins is The Prisoner. Yeah. Everyone needs to do one. Everyone. Nancy Myers, get up here.
I think, to be honest, there is a comic book that I want us to cover on the show at some point called The Silver Coin. And the concept is it's an anthology. It's a horror anthology where a new writer does a new, I don't know if it's a new issue or a new arc or something like that, but it's the same artist on all of it. And I think something like that would be interesting for The Prisoner, where like the same creator, like the creative force behind it is like the same person or the same like story Bible. Like, all right, here's the show I'm making, right? But gets different famous directors to be like, put your stamp on this episode. Put your stamp on this episode. Put your stamp on that one.
One thing, our number 6 is fixed. We have our settings, we have our costumes, we have our look. Every director, you bring your own number 2, and you bring like one weird thing you add.
But that's the thing.
Who's adding the trampoline battle? Who brought that?
They have the fucking trampoline battle, man. But like you can do a Western. Like if you want to bring someone in to do the Western episode, you could
The Prisoner.
Do that. Hey,
Kevin Costner's The
Prisoner. But like you can do stuff like
The Prisoner, an American Saga Part 1.
Where it is like, okay, it's The Prisoner, but it is darker and creepier, and there is some weird like the weird symbols in the background that make a code, and it is whoever directed Long Legs, right? And it is that
Osgood
mystery.
Perkins. I said his name.
Thank you. I don't remember who. But yeah, or if you want it to be like a more traditional like spy thriller, like you could bring in someone else, right? I think the show really lends itself to experimenting a lot with that stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
It could be anything. This was such a fun show to watch. It is the number 1 put it on mute at a party. Do you own a bar? Does something need to go on the bar TV when sports aren't happening? Put on The Prisoner. Listen to it or don't. Just look at it. This one thing I did want to do this year is look at pre-Sopranos television history. You and I will go through film history. We watched The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. We'll watch something like Ingmar Bergman's Persona. We'll look back at things that have influenced later things we like. In film, we might do it in comics. TV, it gets trickier because episode lengths can be unwieldy. You get an old show that ran for like a 30 episode season, which is difficult for us to cover. Or maybe it's something like Moonlighting, where it was caught up in like music rights, something to where it wasn't available for a long time. You have to figure out where to stream it. TV history is trickier to cover, and it feels like it was something that was not really taken so seriously until a certain time. Which is why I demarcated it as pre-Sopranos TV history. And I think this is definitely a show to cover in such a goal.
Yeah.
This seems so valuable to know as a reference point if you're somebody who loves film and television and just art in general. I feel like this is something that got its way into a lot of people's heads. Or even if it's not that, speaks to something that speaks to other people as well. This feels ahead of its time. It feels very relevant. Not relevant in like the sort of political and social way that relevant is often used now, but like artistically relevant. The motifs and the language of it feel like they are still being used today.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wouldn't even put it at like a level like 101 kind of TV history course, but yeah, like you said, there are certain things that you can watch like this show and realize, oh, this has had such an impact on so many other things. I'm almost done watching season 2 of Twin Peaks, and it's my second time watching the show. It's my partner's first time, and she's being like, man, Gravity Falls and this video game we played and this thing and that thing, like I get like there's like it has such a great impact on all of that stuff. So cool.
I watch it. These are my recommendations. Watch The Prisoner. And I felt like I should say I believe the term is little person and not the word that starts with M. I believe that's quite outdated. I felt bad I didn't correct you earlier. Like, let me say this before somebody yells at me for not correcting you.
Well, thank you. Okay. Let's move on to bingo. And I get my bingo sheet here up here. I don't know if we really got much. Arted to death did we get? Did you feel like that number 2 got arted to death? Maybe not.
No, we put arted to death on there in the context of titles we've covered like Black Swan, Suspiria, Perfect Blue, where somebody dies for their art or is killed in an artful way. Like something like the abominable Dr. Phoebes would check that box off.
Yeah.
This I don't think so.
I don't think
art is any of the goals of any of the characters. The show is just very artistic.
Yeah. How about this? So award ceremony? Do we have the art fair one where they got that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give that. I put that on there as like a fake Oscars or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can take awards ceremony. That one woman who wins does seem like so proud of herself.
Right.
And I feel bad. And then with his like prize winnings, like number 2 buys her tapestry.
What a good
guy.
And
then he uses the tapestry as a sail on his little boat to
escape ship. Yeah.
That all that woman's hard work just gets wet, just gets eaten by Rover.
What about change of art direction?
Yes, yes for change of art direction.
With the Western episode specifically, even the Napoleon one. Okay. And then what was the one you had said?
Game becomes real. it's less of a game becomes real and more of a the tables have turned. I thought I had numbered 6 in a trap. He has trapped me. I'm dead.
Oh, then yes, I was. I would even do the like real life chess thing that they did, where the people
that's
are
right.
the chess pieces. I would have given it to you for that.
I've game becomes real. This thing, as repetitive as it is, there's no literal time loop, so I won't take that.
What about tall guy and small guy become friends?
Yeah.
The way he escapes with the butler.
I do, and then the butler takes his house while he runs away.
Something
and
like
then
that.
Meanwhile, the Droog guy just wanders around the highway
hitchhiking.
He's not even trying to hitchhike well. He's not putting enough effort into it. He's
walking in the middle of the road, you know.
Kind of moving his thumb around. He spent all his energy singing Dim Bones.
Yeah.
I love that like 10% of this series finale is just people singing Dim Bones, Dim Bones. Let me see anyone else try that.
You mentioned it. Needle drop of the time period. With the
that's true.
The song that they had there, All You Need Is Love. When did that
the Beatles
come out? When did that song come out? Exactly. We should
let me see.
double check on that.
It was released as a non-album single in July 1967. So yeah, that was like the year before.
Okay, then yeah. I think that fits.
Wow.
Well, that got me a number of things. Still no
good
extra bingos, but I'm real close. I still have one. I've had that one though.
You have one. I have two.
But I'm real close to a couple more. So there you go. There you go. Cool. Any other things on your end? No, didn't get cut in half with a laser, though that probably would have fit. No occult crimes happening here. Okay.
We don't not have occult crimes, but we don't have it looks like an occult crime. All those people in like the Fidelio get-ups.
Yeah.
You thought I couldn't fit in another Kubrick reference? You thought wrong.
So you have hero or villain with themed puns for their identity. Number
we don't
one,
got it.
It's not a pun, but it's a play on words. One, self, the I, here, like.
That's what I mean is Mr. Freeze.
Sure, yeah. But also he's number one. The individual, the self, the I.
There's not enough. It's just the one. It is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is itself.
Cool.
If we have plural, sure.
Well, I think that then does it for our bingo cards, our bingo update.
Yes.
Accidentally hit the spoiler button, or I left it on.
Spoiler alert. Time for our recommendations.
Yeah. Cool. Melissa, for people who enjoyed this, what else might they like?
Lost, of course. We always have to mention Lost. This show also reminded me a lot of The Good Place. This village looks a lot like The Good Place.
Absolutely.
I know The Good Place. I don't think it was designed to. That's something that I don't think was inspired by The Prisoner, because I know that show used just the existing pseudo-European village that was on the Universal Studios backlot, which is used for a million things. But it is a nice matchup. They're in similar settings. You have a character who is in this place that seemingly looks very good, but they're like, what am I doing here? I know I'm not supposed to be here. What do you want? Why do I keep having to pretend to be somebody else? Why can't I be myself?
Yeah.
How do I get out of here?
Yeah. That's a great
Why
one.
do I? And then the ultimate reveal that you are undergoing, again, polite tortures.
Yeah.
There's some similarity there. I mentioned Tenet. There's a movie called The Double. This is based off of a short story by Franz Kafka. And I want to say that story is also called The Double. Let me find this movie. The 2013 one. Yes. The Double is a movie from 2013. It is directed by Richard Ayoade. It stars Jesse Eisenberg and Mia Wasikowska. This is a movie where there's two Jesse Eisenbergs. All you've ever wanted. One Jesse Eisenberg, sad little existence, goes to work, can't work up the courage to flirt with Mia Wasikowska. And then a second Jesse Eisenberg, an identical one, shows up who's just much more popular and successful than him. And he's like, what about me? I've been that the whole time. And the whole movie takes place in this weird liminal space where it's constantly dark outside. Not like it's nighttime, more like we're in a void. We're in a black void. We're in a non-existent place.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the whole world feels very sparse. It feels like the world in Eraserhead, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
A deeply strange movie. Please seek out The Double.
Cool.
Another piece of this is a movie I haven't seen in a long time, so I hope this recommendation is apt. But when I thought of seemingly idyllic British villages where secretly something very sinister is going on, I thought of Hot Fuzz.
Sure.
Try that one on for size. And I mentioned the artist Rene Magritte. Just look up some Rene Magritte paintings. The Prisoner has big son of man energy. It really feels like the painting not to be reproduced, or that one especially. Have you seen Not to Be Reproduced? I know you're an art kid.
I probably have, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
It's a man facing away from us, looking in a mirror, but his reflection in the mirror is also facing away from us.
Okay. Yeah. It's an interesting
It's aesthetically very similar. Then he also has a painting called The Art of Living, which is a guy with a big orange for a head. Very much like Rover, if Rover was orange. I love Rover.
Cool.
All right, I'm done. What do you got?
So yeah, we mentioned a number of things like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or A Clockwork Orange. Is that the I'm mixing those up in my head. A Clockwork Orange is the one with the
milk, the eyeliner.
All right, that's the one that I mean. Yeah, go check that out, because that has some very similar vibes to it. If you want more spy stuff, especially kind of that time, there is the more serious side of that, like Mission Impossible, James Bond, Get Smart, if you want a more comedic
The Man from
route.
Uncle.
Yeah, exactly. There's tons of shows like that I think would fit and would be a good recommendation. If you want something a little more modern, I recently started getting into some comics called Queen and Country, written by Greg Rucka. And they have been fantastic. If you just want like modern MI6, MI5 spy stuff, they've been great. I think he also has a couple novels set in that world too. If you're more of a book reader. Yeah, so go check that stuff out. There's a manga that I really enjoy called 20th Century Boys, that I think would fit for just the, like, there's this conspiracy that they are uncovering. Beyond that, though, not really the same kind of thing. It is more like action thriller suspense. Really doesn't have the spy angle, the weird mysterious village angle. But that I think that would still be an interesting one if you like weird symbols and cults and things like that. Um, Man, I feel like there's a few that are on like the tip of my tongue, or like I should be calling out that I can't think of or can't remember right now. I don't know. I don't know, but I feel like that's a good handful of recommendations you guys should check out.
Yeah. Like we said, you could turn on The Prisoner and you the listener, it'll make you think of something that we didn't even think of. It
Always.
feels
Oh, yeah.
very applicable to a lot of different things.
Indeed.
I'm happy we did this, and I'm happy we did this now at episode 299.
Yeah.
It really marks how far we've come and the great variety of things that we have experienced together.
Exactly. Well, speaking of numbers, next episode 300.
Numbers. We're watching Numbers, the David Krumholtz show. David Krumholtz, another Nolan alum that would make a great number 2.
Yeah, or what's that Jim Carrey like psychological thriller?
The
that
number
he did
23.
About the number 23. No, no. On episode 300, we are not watching 300. Though
No.
we discussed being like that hit movie from Frank Miller, and then saying some other like Frank Miller, right? Like
we're gonna watch Sin City.
Sin City, yeah. No, we're gonna do something special. We're gonna do something a little bit different. We're not necessarily gonna be reviewing something, but we're gonna be taking a look back on everything we've covered. I promise it's not a clip episode or anything like that.
All new content.
All new content. We're gonna have a lot of stuff to talk about. It's gonna be a beefy one for sure. But yeah, like it's gonna be a lot of different kind of top 10, not necessarily top 10 lists, but top 10 lists, top 5 lists, top 3 lists, your favorite stuff, my favorite stuff, and we'll each have a big variety of what those things might be.
It's kind of a retrospective, kind of an award show, kind of a high school yearbook superlative. We're going to name some of our favorite things, some really specific little lists.
Yeah.
Could be like top 10 movies, top 10 villains, top 10 robots, top 5 musical moments, top 3 times I cried. It could be any number, any amount of any topic. We will read them together. We will share.
Yeah.
We're each coming to the table with our own lists, and we're going to share some of our topics with each other. So maybe we can each compile our own versions of the same superlative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. We do something similar at our end of the year retrospectives, but that's just for everything we covered that year. So this will be everything we've covered almost ever on this show.
Right, for the past 6.5 years.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a great time. It is a momentous occasion. Our first show getting to 300 episodes is really cool. So it'll be a blast. I'm sure I'll have like some pizza or something to munch on or something to drink.
Right.
Ooh, I should see if I can make a cocktail or something I can have on the air, like a special drink.
I'll dress up.
Yeah.
You dress up or wear your pizza costume again. Your choice.
My Halloween costume. I'll be Dipper Pines for episode 300.
It's just Halloween in August.
Yeah.
We're doing a dry run for 2 months later.
Good stuff. Yeah, we'll have a blast. So be on the lookout for that. However, I will be traveling at the time that we would normally record that episode. I'll be out in Tampa, Florida for a bachelor party.
Tampa.
Yeah. Or in the like Tampa area ish. I'm not sure if we're actually in Tampa. Yeah, that episode is not going to be coming out on any kind of regularly scheduled timeline. It will be delayed by quite a bit, but it will be coming ASAP. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks here. Instead of our like 2 every other week thing, it should be about 3 weeks, I think, is when it will be coming out. So
extra time to prepare.
There you go. Yeah, indeed. So yeah, lots of good fun stuff to be excited about. So cool. Well, let's wrap things up right there. Melissa, where can the people get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me the medium old-fashioned way. You're not like sending me a telegram. Write me an email. Write me an email at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com. Who would you like to see play a number 6 or a number 2 or any other kind of number? If you were in The Prisoner, what would you want your number to be? Let me know.
And it's okay to reuse a number because there were multiple 66s in the show. So if you want to be 66, you could be the next 66.
What's your The Prisoner OC? We'd love to hear.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and if you guys want to get in contact with me, I am at Kyle Springer. And if you guys want to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we are up to here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts official on Threads. So please go like, share, and subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that. If you are watching this on YouTube, we have plenty more videos for you to check out over here on that side of the screen. Yeah, that would help us out a bunch as well. This has been number 299 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Be seeing you.